Okay, got it. So a warm welcome to all of you and good morning for this class on Satipatthana. And the last few classes, we have been studying the Satipatthana Sutta. And to recapitulate, the Buddha has recommended the cultivation or cultivating the mindfulness of the body, the feelings, and the mind. And we have studied all these areas in depth according to the sutta. And today we are going to begin to explore what is called the Dhammanusmriti, or the mindfulness of the Dhammas. Now, to understand the word Dhamma or Dharma in Sanskrit, we can look at how the Buddha has interpreted the word Dhamma, because the word Dhamma is like a multi-variable sort of a word, and it has different connotations. So when we are talking about the Dhamma in the context of a Satipatthana Sutta, we have to bear in two meanings of the word Dhamma. Dhamma is actually the law that operates the way our mind functions and the way our mind is enslaved by the various factors which we are going to study. And the another, meaning of the word Dhamma is the Buddha's teaching. So when we meditate deeply, we have to have some frame of practicing, wherein we can practice and we can release our mind, because the ultimate aim of the Satipatthana Sutta is to release the mind. And if we are familiar with the roadmap to the release of the mind, and if we are familiar with some of the mental factors that help us to attain to nirvana, then the path becomes very easy for us. And therefore, when we are talking about the mindfulness of the Dhamma, we are talking in two different ways as to how our mind operates and how our mind is enslaved by various factors. And another connotation that we have to bear in mind is the teachings of the Buddha itself. So if we study this part of the Satipatthana Sutta, we are studying the method that help us to cross the flood of suffering. And therefore, we have to bear this in mind, that we have to cultivate the awareness of the Dhamma. Okay. So when we are thinking about, cultivating the awareness of the Dhammas, we have to bear in mind the various teachings of the Buddha, which we are going to look at and which are going to study at length and at depth. So we began with cultivation of the awareness of the body. And we have seen that the breathing is the essence of body. And we understood that it's very important to cultivate the mindfulness of the breathing. And as we breathe in, breathe out, we cultivate the awareness. And then we extend that awareness to the entire body. We scan the body, we become aware of the various elements of which the body is made up of, and then we become aware of the anatomy of the body through the scanning process. From the toe to the head, top of the head, we scan our body and we cultivate the awareness of the body. And we have also seen that we also cultivate or reflect on the various stages that the body undergoes when it decomposes, so that we lose our deeper attachment to the body as our own self. We cannot own the body because the body goes through its natural laws. But as a human being, because we don't see the truth, we hold on to the body. So Buddha has taught, this in the meditation, to see the rise and fall of body, to see the rise and fall of breathing, cultivate the awareness of impermanence. And then we have seen the second domain where we are supposed to cultivate the awareness to cultivate the awareness. And that second area that we have seen where we need to cultivate the awareness is the awareness of Vedana, or what is called in the English word as feeling sensation. And we know that there are body-based sensations, and we know that there are mind-based sensations. And these all sensations can be categorized into three: pleasant ones, painful ones, and the neutral ones. And depending on the feelings, we have different mental states which arise. So if the feeling is likable, our mind tends to get engaged and engrossed into that. If the feeling is pleasurable, our mind runs after those objects. If the feeling is painful, we want to push it. And that's how the hatred is generated. And if the feeling is neutral, there is no energy to the feeling, we become stupid, idiotic. Therefore the Buddha encouraged us to cultivate awareness of the feeling sensations. And because of these feeling sensations, the whole entire gamut of the emotions arise in our mind. And then we have seen the awareness of what is called the mind, whether our mind is liberated, whether our mind is enslaved, whether our mind is going forward, whether our mind is going forward, backward, whether our mind is boundless, or whether our mind is confined to certain boundaries, so on and so forth. And we try to become aware of the various what is called the poisons of the mind, like raga, dosa, and moha. So we have seen this very clearly, and now we are going to enter into the domain of what is called the mindfulness of the Dhammas. And there are, if we study this section of the Satipatthana Sutta, there the Buddha has given various sort of list of the teachings. Okay, and the mindfulness of Dhamma begins with a very interesting sort of a teaching, which we are going to study today. So what is that teaching? It's called the 5 hindrances. So we have to cultivate the awareness of what is called the 5 hindrances. And in the traditional Indic languages, in Sanskrit and Pali, the hindrances are called nivarana. You can write this word if you want to write nivarana. And the connotation of the word nivarana is that they are hindrances. So Dhyanacharya translated the nivaran word as the hindrances. So there are 5 hindrances. There are 5 obstacles which doesn't let our mind to be free. Because we are enslaved by the 5 hindrances, and that's why our minds are not free. That's why we suffer, and that's why our mind cannot go forward. That's why our mind cannot become boundless. And that's why we cannot become enlightened. That's why we cannot experience the light of the truth. So these 5 hindrances can also be translated as the 5 coverings. They hinder the very nature, very bright nature of our mind. Our minds are naturally shining, our minds are naturally free. But because of these 5 hindrances, our minds are enslaved, our minds are obscured, our minds are, as it were, ignorant, stupid minds. And therefore, these 5 hindrances, because they are the hindrances to the progress in meditation. And we all experience those 5 hindrances. It's not that, they are exclusive to somebody. We all experience the hindrances. So hindrances are natural. Hindrances are natural. We are conditioned by the hindrances. So the one way of looking at these 5 hindrances or nivarana is to treat them as the obstacles to the meditation practice. They are the obstacles to the meditation practice. They're the obstacles to the enlightenment. They are the obstacles to the freedom of mind. They are also called the covering because they cover the bright nature of the mind. They cover the enlightened nature of the mind. So they are also called a cover. Like avaran, when we say in Indic languages, avaran, they are called a nivaran here. So these 5 hindrances, I'm going to read and I'm going to gloss over them. What I'm going to do today is to read the whole section first, and then I'm going to go into details of it. Okay, so let me read, and you please pay attention, read in your text and underline if you don't understand anything. Okay, so the Dhammas, 5 hindrances, and how, O monks, a monk focuses on Dhamma as it is. You see, every time we come with a word as it is, Kaya as it is, Vedana as it is, mind as it is, likewise Dhamma as it is, precision, clarity, not daydreaming, not inventing ideas for ourselves. In other words, trying to understand, trying to be mindful of everything as it is, Dhamma as it is. As I told you, every single word matters when we study the sutras. So here you see, and how a monk focuses on Dhamma as it is. Here, a monk focuses on Dhamma and observes Dhamma in regard to the 5 hindrances. And how, O monks, a monk focuses on Dhamma and observes Dhamma in regard to the 5 hindrances. There is a question, how does one do it? How do I do it? How do I cultivate the awareness of the 5 hindrances? And as I told you, this is also Buddha's teachings, and Buddha tried to verbalize whatever he experienced for us. So through this understanding these words, we can grasp the total dynamics of the Buddha's path. Isn't it? We can totally understand how to cultivate the awareness of the Dhamma so that our minds can be free. And therefore, understanding these words are very important. And that's why you see Dhanacharya Nagaji is very particular about certain words. He's very particular about how the sutras to be taught. He's very particular about how the clarity of the suttas can be developed. And that's what I have been trying in the last couple of classes, is to bring the clarity around the terminologies, around the practices. So the first hindrance, please pay close attention. The first hindrance is sensual desire. And we are going to look into what is the sensual desire. Here, O monks, a monk having sensual desire, he knows, I have sensual desire. So whenever our minds have arising of the sensual desires, we know it. How do we know it? I have sensual desires. In the traditional Pali parlance, the sati is equated with a gatekeeper, a guard. So what does the guard do? The guard is standing on the square and he notices who is coming and who is going. Right? Like if somebody is standing as a doorkeeper, they keep notice of who is coming and who is going. How many people are going inside and how many people are going outside? What sort of the people are coming inside and what sort of the people are going outside? What is the quality of the people who are coming inside and what is the quality of the people going outside? You see? So you see this very, very clear statement by the Buddha about sensual desire. Oh, monks, a monk having sensual desire, he knows. So you want to be aware that I have sensual desires. When I'm meditating and when the sensual desire arise, you want to mark it. You want to know it, that this is the sensual desire which has arisen in me. That sensual desire loses its power over you. Just to notice it. It's very profound. Just to know that the sensual desire has awakened in me, has arisen in me. Just to notice that is already taking control of our minds, because most of the times we are not aware that we are in the grip of the sensual desires. Number one. Number two, when there is no sensual desire, he knows I have no sensual desire. So when there is a presence of the sensual desire, we just note, yes, there is a sensual desire in my mind. And when there is no sensual desire, we should know that there is no sensual desire. And he knows how the sensual desire has ceased. He knows how sensual desire has arisen. So, you know, he understands. He becomes, oh, this is how the sensual desire arises. This is how the sensual desire passes away. Arising and passing. Like everything else, the sensual desire will arise and it will pass away. And he knows there is no future arising of sensual desire that has been detached. So at a level of mind, when we cultivate Satipatthana, then automatically our minds get detached from the sensual desire. And when that detachment happens, when that break happens, we are also aware that now there is no future arising of sensual desire. So what is the sensual desire? So as I told you that there are sense doors, 5 sense doors, and the mind. And the 5 sense doors have their objects. And the mind has the conceptualization, the thoughts, and the emotional entanglement that the mind creates. So our sensual desire means getting engrossed in the sensual objects, the object of the senses. The eye getting indulged into forms, the ears getting indulged into sounds, the nose getting indulged into good fragrant smells. So and the tongue tests the body for touch, and the mind is running after craving for the thoughts, which confirms whatever prejudiced views we all have to some extent. Isn't it? We follow the same, the track, because that supports our sense of ego. And if anything doesn't support the sense of ego, we react. If we encounter something unpleasant, the person with whom we have difficulties, like some enemies, we say, to use the word enemy, we at once become furious. Sometimes we are so neutral that we do not respond to the needs of the people around us. But the enlightened mind always responds to the needs of the people around them, because they are very active. They are very mindful. Isn't it? So sensual desire, we have to understand like this. And the Buddha has given a lot of examples to explain us what is this, sensual desires. Okay, so for example, the Buddha says that we are always running after the sensuality. Always our minds are running after sensuality. All the time our minds are running after sensuality. Okay. So please bear in mind this word called kamachanda, the indulgence of our senses with their objects. This is called kamachanda, or sensual desire. The second hindrance, or the second sort of a covering over the mind, which obscures the truth, is the covering of ill will, the hindrance of ill will. What is ill will? Here, O monks, a monk having ill will, he knows I have ill will. Sometimes we are full of hatred, sometimes we are full of negativity, but we don't mark it. We are not mindful of it, that my mind is full of hatred, my mind is full of anger, bitterness, irritation. So when that sort of the hindrance arise in our meditation, or when we are meditating, or in our life, we cultivate our mindfulness of that. We are aware that my mind is full of hatred, my mind is full of resentment, my mind is full of irritation, my mind is full of bitterness. So when our minds are excessively full of bitterness, we cannot see clearly. When there is no ill will, he knows I have no ill will. So when our mind is full of compassion or love, we know that our minds are imbued with love for all. Our minds are compassionate. There is no ill will. There is no hatred. There is no hostility. We mark it. We mark it. Okay, my mind is now full of love. My mind is full of compassion. He knows how ill will has arisen. So, in our minds, we can see how the ill will has arisen. And we are aware of the rise of ill will in our minds. Likewise, he knows how the ill will has ceased. So when the ill will has arisen, we are mindful. When the ill will has ceased, we are mindful. And he knows there is no future arising of ill will that has been detached. So when our mind is detached, and we know that, the future arising of ill will is not going to happen because our minds are detached. That's the time to become aware. So what Buddha is essentially asking us to cultivate is the awareness, is the mindfulness, just like the gatekeeper will do. As I told you, like the gatekeeper will notice who is coming, who is going, what sort of a person is coming in, what sort of person is going out. Likewise, we have to guard our minds. Likewise, we have to watch our minds. Likewise, we have to be mindful of our own minds. But what exactly we try to cultivate the awareness of when we practice the Dhammanusati is the awareness of the hindrances, is the awareness of the covering that are there on our minds. The third, okay, if you want an Indian word for ill will, it is called Vapad or Vapad. This is an Indian word for ill will, Vapad or Vapad. Then our mind is full of sloth and drowsiness. So sometimes we want to meditate, but we are very, we are like sloths, lazy, not moving, no energy. We are dull, We cannot, there is no energy to meditate. Sometimes we feel so sleepy, drowsiness. And that's a time we need to inspire ourselves to, to sit in meditation. There's a time when we need to inspire, get on our own legs, sit for meditation. Isn't it? So the third hindrance is sloth and drowsiness. Here, O monks, a monk having sloth and drowsiness, he knows, I have sloth and drowsiness. When there is no sloth and drowsiness, he knows, I have no sloth and drowsiness. He knows how sloth and drowsiness has arisen. And he knows how the sloth and drowsiness has ceased. And he knows there is no future arising of sloth and drowsiness. It has been detached. So there is a very interesting word for it. In the Indian languages, it's called Thina Middha. Thina Middha. So laziness, in the common parlance, we call it laziness. The laziness is one of the biggest problems. We are so lazy. It is called in the technical Pali terms at apramad. We are not striving enough. We are not making efforts. We can also say lack of efforts, lack of energy, lack of initiative. Now, anybody who has seen Dhyanacharya is always active. He is always doing something. He is full of energy, if you notice his being. I have hardly seen Dhyanacharya in the drowsy state. His mind is always active. His mind is always willing to work. But when we meditate, we see for ourselves that sometimes the laziness takes over us. And the greatest danger to meditation is to be lazy. The Buddha compares, it's a very, 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 very graphic sort of a depiction. What would happen if you find a black cobra sitting on your lap? What would you do? You will immediately shake it away. So the drowsiness or the laziness is like a black cobra sitting on your lap. It is not letting you practice the mindfulness. It's a very graphic image, but that's the image that the Buddha has used. Laziness is very dangerous. Sloth and torpor is very dangerous. Isn't it? So please understand that, when there is arising of the sloth and torpor, the sloth and drowsiness, sleepiness, laziness, you just, throw it away. The Buddha says that many a times we don't want to meditate. Our minds are so much agitated, but still we have to sit. Whatever are the circumstances, we still have to count the breathing. Clench your fist, but do it. Make efforts. So that's the third hindrance that we have seen. So if we are lazy, if we are not having energies, if we are not making efforts, we are never going to be free. we are never going to cultivate the Satipatthana. And we all experience that. Don't think that, it's for somebody else. It's the condition for all of us. Many a times we are so lazy. We say, oh, I don't want to do it today. I'm feeling so drowsy. I want to sleep a little bit. I don't want to practice it now. No. We have to practice. We have to cultivate the awareness from moment to moment, right here. The word that is used by the Buddha is right here. At this moment, we have to cultivate that awakening or alertness of the mind. To be mindful is to be alert. To be mindful is to be watchful. To be mindful is to be full of energy. To be mindful is to shake all the drowsiness, all the laziness. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and anxiety. Here, O monks, a monk having restlessness and anxiety knows, I have restlessness and anxiety. When there is no restlessness and anxiety, he knows, I have no restlessness and anxiety. He knows how restlessness and anxiety has arisen. He knows how the restlessness and anxiety has ceased. And he knows there is no future arising of restlessness and anxiety has been detached. And sometimes when we practice meditation or in our day-to-day life, our minds are so much agitated. Our minds are restless. We cannot focus our attention on our breathing. To the extent we cannot even count the breathing. Right? We cannot even count the breathing. So our minds are so agitated. Our minds are so full of anxiety. We are worried about something which is going to happen or not happen unnecessarily. Sometimes this, thoughts about future and, they create unnecessarily anxiety among us. But what the Buddha says, right here you observe in your mind. What do you observe when you practice the mindfulness of the Dhamma? Whether my mind is restless. How this is how the restlessness has arisen. This is how the restlessness has passed away. And when we are completely detached, we also note that my mind is completely detached from the restlessness. And in the traditional Pali and Sanskritic language, this fourth hindrance is called Udaccha Kukuccha. Very, it's a very beautiful sound. Udaccha Kukuccha. So the fourth hindrance is Udaccha Kukuccha. So we what do we do about these hindrances? We work on them. We work with them through bringing the light of the awareness. We try to note them. And you understand, even if noting that the sensual desire has arisen, you want to note that my mind is full of drowsiness, you want to note that my mind is full of restlessness, you want to note that my mind is full of irritation, hostility, is something. Because many a times we are living our lives heedlessly, not mindfully. We are living our lives without making efforts, without practicing the focus of the mind. And Dhanacharya has always emphasized on focusing the mind. Because of these 5 hindrances, our mind cannot be stable. We cannot achieve samatha if our minds are full of these hindrances. So let's go to the 5th hindrance. I'm going to read. 5th hindrance is called the doubt. Here, O monks, a monk having doubt, he knows, I have doubt. When there is no doubt, he knows, I have no doubt. He knows how doubt has arisen. And he knows how the doubt has ceased. And he knows there is no future arising of doubt that has been detached. Now there is some humble jumble of the words. because of the text is not properly edited. Okay, instead of ill will, please read doubt. Thus, he focuses on Dhamma, observing Dhamma internally. So, how do we practice the Dhamma of the 5 hindrances? He focuses on Dhamma, observing Dhamma internally. So, we observe these hindrances internally. This is the sensual desire, Kamachanda. This is Vyapad. This is Thinamidha. This is Udacha Kukucha and doubt. What is doubt? Doubt in the Indic languages is called Vichikicha. Vichikicha. So Chikissa means inquiring and Vichikicha means lack of inquiry. We doubt. And doubt is a hindrance. We doubt in our own abilities. There is one level of doubt. We doubt in our own abilities. And second kind of a doubt is we doubt the very process itself. We doubt the Dhamma itself. We doubt the Buddha himself. So having the faith in the process, in the practice is very important. That if I practice this, and this faith is not based on superstition. We have evidences. Because when we practice, we realize certain stages of mind. And that's the evidence. It works. Now my mind is peaceful. Now I am becoming a little bit kind. So when we practice, we get evidences. All of us. That is the assurance of the Buddha. If we practice his Dhamma, if we practice Satipatthana, it's definitely going to have benefits. And we can experience those benefits for ourselves. So the faith in the teachings is based on the experiences. It is not a blind faith. It is not something based on speculation. It is based on the evidences that we can all experience. So if we practice Anapanasati for some time, we can feel the benefits immediately then and there. And we know that it works. But sometimes we have doubts. We doubt our own abilities. We doubt the entire process. We doubt the teachings. So when the doubt arises, become aware of it. And when there is no doubt, become aware that there is no doubt. And when your mind is completely sure that this is the only way, Ekayano. And we have seen the Buddha has used the word Ekayano, Satipatthana. The narrow path to the enlightenment, the only path to the enlightenment. So when we know that this is the path, this is it. When that happens, our conviction is 100%. Our commitment is 100%. We have truly taken refuge in the teachings of the Sutta. And now we cannot be shaken. We become unshakable. So these 5 hindrances that you have to bear in mind. And when we are cultivating the awareness of the Dhamma, we have to become aware that how they arise in our minds all the time. How they pass away, how they cease, arising and passing away, here and now. Now, the last paragraph of this section, thus he focuses on Dhamma, observing Dhamma internally. He focuses on Dhamma, observing Dhamma externally. He focuses on Dhamma, observing Dhamma internally and externally. So we observe these qualities within and without. Or he focuses on Dhamma and observing the appearance of Dhamma. He sees how it arises. He focuses on Dhamma and observes the cessation of Dhamma. Or else he just observes the Dhamma as it is. So we just observe as it is. It arising, passing away. It is there, it is not there. Just that. So simple. It's so difficult. And it's so profound. The most difficult thing is not to do anything. Doing nothing, as Dhyanacharya says, is the most difficult thing. Because we always want to do this thing or that thing. Doing nothing, just being detached, is important. He focuses on Dhamma and observes the cessation of Dhamma, or else he just observes the Dhamma as it is. only so far as sufficient for insight and attention on Dhamma. So we just don't go deep into it. We cultivate this a little bit strength in our mindfulness so that we can cultivate the insight. We can see everything the way it is. He focuses without attachment and not clinging to anything from this world. Just so a monk focuses on Dhamma and observing Dhamma in 5 hindrances. So we have seen that, how these 5 hindrances arise and pass away. And it's in all the texts that the Buddha has taught about the 5 hindrances. And these hindrances are dependent on each other. So if we understand one, we can begin to understand the nature of another. So now I am going to give you a very graphic sort of the visualization of what is this. What is it all about? You see, we are all in the water, isn't it? So if the water is still, if the water is clear, then we can see what is beneath it. Okay, now imagine that we want to reflect. There is a water and we want to see our clear reflection in the water. Okay, there is a water and we want to see our clear reflection in the water. And now imagine that the water is mixed with lac, turmeric and dyes. So colorful water. Will we able to see our reflection in the water which is filled with color? Can we see our reflection in the colored water? The answer is no, we cannot. So the mind full of sensual desire is like the water mixed with lac, turmeric and dyes, means colorful water. So in the colorful water, we cannot see our reflection. When the water is boiling, can we see our reflection in the boiling water? We cannot see our reflection in the boiling water. So if our mind is hostile, if our mind is agitated, if our mind is full of hatred, we cannot see the way it is. If our mind is full of the sensual desires, we cannot see the way it is, as it is. We cannot see as it is. When the water is boiling, we cannot see the reflection in the boiling water. Likewise, when our minds are full of hatred, or if our minds are full of hostility, if our minds are full of irritation, we cannot, see the way it is. So sometimes you imagine the water which is full of plants and algae. So some of the, sometimes if you go to the pond, it's full of plants and algae, we cannot see a reflection. Just like that, when we are lazy, when our minds are sleepy, drowsy, full of sloth, drowsiness, torpor, we cannot see as it is. Third hindrance is like the water covered with plants and algae. Now, if there are waves, there is a breach and it's causing a lot of waves on the surface of the water is becoming churned, restless. We cannot see the reflection. Likewise, if our mind is full of restlessness and worry, we cannot see as it is. And doubt is compared with the turbid, unsettled, muddy, and the dark water. So if the water is muddy, unsettled, turbid, and full of mud, we cannot see our reflection there. Just like that, if our mind is full of doubts, we cannot see any reflection. We cannot see as it is, because they hinder the luminous mind. They luminous the enlightened mind. They hinder the mind of the Buddha. So please, I'm going to recapitulate. The Dhammanusmriti, or the mindfulness of the Dhamma, begins with mindfulness of hindrances. And there are 5 hindrances. And we become aware when the hindrances arise, when they pass away. And there are 5 kinds of hindrances, as we have seen. The number 1 hindrance is the sensual desire. Our mind is always craving for sensuality. Our senses are always trying to indulge into sensuality. And the Buddha compared the sensuality. He gave a very graphic sort of an example of the water filled with colors, the water filled with turmeric, the water filled with dyes, the water filled with lac. We cannot see our reflection in this colorful water. Likewise, when our mind is full of sensual desires, we cannot see as it is. We cannot experience the Dhamma. The second hindrance, as we have seen, is vapad, is ill will, is an agitated mind, it's a hostile mind. So if our mind is full of hostility, we cannot see as it is. So what we need to do? We have to cultivate non-hostility. And the Buddha has given the example of likened the ill will with the boiling water. So when the water is boiling, sometimes our mind is like agitated like a boiling water, and we cannot see as it is. And in the boiling water, we cannot see our own reflection. When we are lazy, drowsy, full of sloth, it's like a water covered with plants and algae. In that water, you cannot see your reflection. Likewise, when our minds are full of sloth and torpor, we cannot see as it is, the way it is. Then the fourth hindrance is the restlessness and worry. Udaccha kukuccha. So when our minds are full of worry, our minds are full of restlessness, our minds are full of, agitation, what happens? We cannot see as it is. We cannot experience as it is. And the Buddha has likened that state of mind with wind churned water. The water with a lot of waves. And the doubt on our own ability and doubt on the teachings itself is like a turbid, unsettled, muddy placed in dark water. We cannot see any reflection there. Likewise, when our minds are full of doubts, we cannot see as it is. And these 5 hindrances are there. If we remove the 5 hindrances, we straight away awaken. If we uncover these hindrances, then we see the luminous mind. We see the detached mind. So I think that's enough for today. And I hope you understand these 5 hindrances, which is very important teaching for all of us to understand. And we have to calculate. We have to understand that when we cultivate these 3 awareness of kaya, of Vedana, and of mind, naturally the power of hindrances is weakened. So, for example, if we cultivate the awareness of what happens after the body, we lose a lot of the force of sensuality, because we know the nature of body as it is, isn't it? When we scan our body from the top of the head to the toe, we begin to see the real nature of the body, not the glorified or romanticized version of the body. Then what is there in the body? There are 9 holes from which all the dirt is going out. Eyes, if we get up in the morning, we know that there is something which nobody likes. All these 9 orifices are leaking all the time, isn't it? So we realize when we scan our body, when we look into inside the body, the internal organs, we sort of cultivate the detachment with the body. And when that happens, we lose the force of sensual pleasures, because we see the way it is. When we become tranquil, when we are no more moved by the pleasures and pains, then our mind is not restless. Then our mind is tranquil. So when we cultivate the awareness of the mind, we know that whatever has arisen is going to pass away. It's limiting my mind. Now my mind is limited. Now my mind is boundless. So you see, when we practice this 3 cultivations, that as we have seen in the previous classes, we automatically are working on our hindrances, on removing these covers, after covers, so that we can straight away go to the path of the enlightenment, nirvana. So practice is the key. And the most dangerous of all these hindrances is not to make efforts, is to be lazy, is to be full of drowsiness. So if we are enthusiastic, if we are full of energy, then that will promote us to practice. And when we practice, we realize the fruits. And as the Buddha is clear, he's not asking any of his students to believe anything without experiencing it. Without evidence, the Buddha is not asking you to take it as his teaching. So when we practice the counting of the breathing, we see immediately the benefits of it. When our minds become settled, when our minds are calm, when there is no agitation in our mind, we immediately feel it. And we know that, it works. If I practice more, my mind can be more calm, samatha. There is no agitation in the mind. Now, I was giving the example of waters, different sort of waters, colorful water, boiling water, the water filled of plants and algae, the water which is, dynamic, continuously moving, and water that is dark, muddy. Now you imagine that through your meditation, your mind settles down. Just like when you keep a glass of water, whether it's full of mud or whatever, when the glass is still, the dust settles down and you see the pure crystal water. The real nature of the water you see. So when we practice meditation, all these hindrances are settled. They are gone. And when that happens, you see the clear nature of the mind, the luminous nature of the mind as it is. So I think I have spoken enough today, and this is how we work. We take the bit by bit, and we have covered the section on hindrances today. So I will open up the class for another 10 minutes for any discussions or anything that anyone would like to share.
Yeah, can I thank you very much,
Yes,
Mr. Mangesha, for your explanation. Very clear, good examples, and there's a lot more clarity in how these hindrances work. And the way I understood Satipatthana, while I was reading the hindrances, I went through this text several times until I get there's something in the words that the text is saying. There is a pull towards the understanding, when I read the text. So what I gathered from this is all these hindrances, they arise. Yeah. And the awareness, the observation of the thing that is arising, just the mere observation of what is arising and what is ceasing to arise, and that itself brings about the detachment, because the understanding is there. So there is nothing to be done. There's nothing to cultivate. Just observe. Be in the moment. You observe what is happening, and you know that something is arising. The sexual desire is arising. But it is not to say that the sexual desire that is arising is something bad or is something good. There's no judgment involved in whatever is arising. All these five things that are hindering the observation of what it is.
Good.
Yeah, the observation of what it is. All these hindrances will arise in our lives, in this celestial life that we have. It will keep on arising. But we, as the observer, we just see, we just look at it. Yes, I understand it's coming up. I can see it coming up, but I do not hold, I do not be attached to it. When it ceases, also I can see it moving away like the clouds in the sky. but I'm
Right.
still not attached. You know, so that is how everything will come up at one time or the other, and it will keep on coming up.
Yes.
And this observing of this and not even letting go, because the letting go just happens. The letting, we don't have to do anything. Huh? Just the letting go of all this just happens naturally. And through this meditative practice, the more we practice, we can actually see it ceasing to have any effect on our lives. And we become totally detached. And as you said clearly, we become more, clarity comes. Naturally, it comes to us. Anything that we see, anything that we do, just we get very clear. Yeah, that is all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Very good, very good, very good. When the sun of mindfulness arise, you know, it melts all the snow. Isn't it? Just like when the mindfulness arise, it destroys all the hindrances. So mindfulness is key. To be alert, to be mindful, to cultivate even to mind. It's not easy to be mindful. That's why, the Dhanacharya has says day and night, once in a day and once in a night. Please practice. Please cultivate. Please. Because sometimes otherwise, if we just use the words and don't cultivate, don't practice, then it becomes just the jugglery of the words. We just become like a parrot repeating the words, but it's not exactly helping us to realize the way it is. You see, Puvan? So your point is very well taken. And your example of the clouds, the sky is always there, but the cloud is always obscuring. So sometimes when we work on the hindrances, we look at the hindrances like the clouds in the sky. They arise and pass away. Some clouds are dark, some clouds are bright, some clouds are rain producing, some clouds are not rain producing. Some clouds are thin, some clouds are very heavy. Isn't it? So that's likewise these hindrances are. They obscure the sky-like nature of the mind. Just like they obscure the very purity of the water. Isn't it? So good example, Puvan. Anybody else who would like to comment or share their understanding or anything else?
Good morning, Mangeshji.
Good morning, Saranya.
Actually, I have one doubt on the previous, actually not in previous class, we are discussed the word breathing, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, I thank you so much because your teaching is helped me a lot to take the Malayalam Satipadana session. So your teaching is very helpful to me.
Okay.
Actually, in that when we discussed about the breathing, you said that we have two techniques. We are using Ganana and Anubandhana, counting and following the breath.
Yes.
So reverse counting
is counting, is Ganana. Yes.
Yeah. And you said that the following breath, for example, double counting is following the breathing. Actually, double counting is also Ganana, right?
Ganana. It's also Ganana. It's not it following the breathing.
Yeah, following the breathing is start from yellow belt certification, right?
Yes.
Okay.
See, you have to understand the meaning of the word Ganana means counting. Okay, so you're counting in two ways. One is the reverse counting and one is the double counting. And sometimes if you want to check your mind, you count up to 10.
Yeah.
So if you fail to count, up to 10, then you know that your mind is agitated. When you overshoot, then you know that your mind is full of drowsiness.
Yeah.
So you are over alert or alert. Drowsy or over alert. So in the sutta that is recommended, to practice all kinds of breathing, counting. But when your mind becomes very subtle, then you automatically stop counting. Because you know that when your mind moves with counting, it is a hindrance. So automatically the counting goes away. It happens automatically. You no longer feel the need to count. And you just keep on following the breathing. You see, Saranya?
Yeah, yes.
Isn't it? And when you follow the breathing, Anubandhana, then again you don't feel the need to follow the breathing, because your mind becomes so subtle and so concentrated that you just focus on a point.
Yeah.
You see, Saranya, do you understand?
Yes, yes, yes.
Very good. Very well. Very well. Very well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody? You see, I would recommend what Dr. Nanacharya has recommended: a continuous practice. Don't think that you will practice one day and everything is done. Don't ever think that. Incrementally, step by step, every day, efforts is going to be more helpful than trying to eat the entire chunk in one day. So likewise, the sutra that we study, just take a bit out of it, reflect on it, study it, practice it. Every single word matters, as I have been telling you from the day one. Every sentence matters, isn't it? So be, very rigorous in your studies. Study the sutta. Never study the sutta to impress others, but to follow the path, to understand the truth, to become, to free our minds, isn't it? Sometimes, we get full, we are so much full of pride. I have studied sutta, I know these, and no, the aim of the sutta is to enable us to free our minds, help others to free their minds, nothing else. Okay, any other things? Because we got another 4 minutes to go and then we will close the class.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah. See, the thing is, ever since I started reading the Diamond Sutra and then this Satipatthana and all that, and I often face certain kind of conflicts within me. Whenever I have this Nama Rupa, like for example, I like using the title of doctorate, DR in front of my name because I feel I earned it. But then as I keep on reading, I feel, is it really necessary for me to have this title in front? And I'm becoming more and more uncomfortable about using the title. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't really resonate. It doesn't really resonate. So that is like gradually dropping off, like dropping off, I don't know, how would you see this, or how would you connect this with what we are doing today? It's like a hindrance. Would you consider like a hindrance?
No, I think dropping away is a natural thing. You want to be light because we have been carrying a lot of burden of Namarupa. All the time we are carrying the burden of Namarupa so much that, it's so heavy to carry the burden of the Namarupa. So when the Namrup, Namrup, goes, I won't say goes away because our body is not going to go, our minds will be there. What I'm trying to say that when we understand the nature of Namarupa, then we become light. Now imagine a boat full of so many things. It cannot go fast. But if you remove a lot of burden, a lot of heaviness from the boat, it becomes very fast. So the mental state that you are describing of the nama, the titles, and the words, and the systems and whatnot, the more we offload versus that, but practice is important. Without practice, you cannot take your boat from this show to that show. If you want to increase the speed, give up a lot of attachments. Do away with the load that you are carrying so far. So if we see this Satipatthana Sutta, if we conceive it properly, it's actually mindfulness of the Nama Rupa. Rupa is body, isn't it? Rupa is something materialistic, something concrete. And the nature of the Rupa is that it arises and passes away. Okay, Nama is a psychological, mentalist, the psychological things like Vedana, mind, the Dhamma, isn't it? So actually, Satipatthana Sutta asks us to, enable us to experience the Nama Rupa as it is, as not belonging to me, as something, is going to arise and fall away. If we attach to it, it's going to produce the suffering, the dukkha. You understand?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
So, this Nama-Rupa categorization is
Mm.
very interesting categorization. So we are all Nama-Rupa, aren't we?
Yes.
Isn't it? But we attach to it. And the Buddha says detachment with the Nama-Rupa. Then our mind becomes so powerful because it has offloaded all these burdens. Is that what you want me to answer, Puvan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Puvan. Okay, this is 7 o'clock, and we should complete in our class in 1 hour. See you next week. I think next week will be a little bit difficult because I will be in Lumbini and the connection is not proper there. So I would recommend that you keep on studying, practicing, reading the sutta, share it with others as Saranya is doing, and see you next week. Till then, good morning to you all.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So had a
Thank
wonderful
you.
session, nice discussion. Okay, so and thank you all, and thank you for supporting, and we'll meet you soon. Coming Saturday we will update. Please check the link in our Diamond Sutra group and Yellow Belt group. We will update while our session is there. So thank you, Mangeshi, once again.
Thank you.
So thank you, Anand all. Thank you.